Hi folks, Roger Bain from Bain Custom Woodworking here in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. Today, I want to talk about dust collection. I don't want to talk about my G700 processor, although that's a wonderful system from Harvey. I want to talk about how I ran my ductwork, the choices I made to run the ductwork that I have, and why I made those choices. Then I want to talk about how I set it up, how I laid it out, where I put my blast gates, and why I put my blast gates where I did, which is maybe a little unconventional, but I'm fine with that. And then some of the new features that I added as far as equipment that I added for dust collection, and a new run I made to one of my old tools that has really made my dust collection much more efficient. So let's talk about the choices that I made and why I made them. I've been running this shop here for about 15 years. When I first set it up, I had a smaller dust system and I used flex hose. Didn't take long for me to move from flex hose to 4-inch PVC pipe. I made that decision years ago because it was cost effective for me. This year, I decided to look into putting metal pipe in with good joints, good clamps to get all the joints tight. I looked into that, and for a small business owner, it was a little bit too expensive for me. It was going to cost me for a 500 square foot shop, so I'm 20 feet long, 25 feet wide, it was going to cost me about $3,500. Now, would it have been a good investment? Sure it would, if I could afford it. But right now, I couldn't afford that. So I decided to look at other options. And in the end, I went back to using my 4-inch PVC pipe that I already had on hand, so I didn't have to add a lot of that. But what I did do is I added more blast gates than I've had in the past. In the past, I really only had 2 blast gates. I get it, that's not many, but that's what I had. So I added more, and we'll count them as I go through. Don't let me forget to do that. And I also rerouted my ductwork so that it's not reliant on a lot of flex hose. I tried to take other professional advice and run solid pipe as close to the tools as I possibly could in order to get the best suction that I could for my dust system. So that's why I made my choice. It really came down to a return on investment. What am I going to spend to get my return to make sure I'm cleaning up as much dust as possible so that I'm not breathing it into my lungs. And in the end, for me, maybe not for some other folks, but for me, small business owner, I decided to stay with the 4-inch ductwork. Now, I could have gone to 6-inch, but I decided at this point, I already had most of the ductwork. So let's just rerun it, reroute it, and rethink how I collect my dust. So with all that talking done, let's go ahead and turn the camera around, stop focusing on me, and start looking at the ductwork, the blast gates, and some of the new tools that I have added in order to collect more dust more efficiently. So hold right on, and we'll be right back. Okay, folks, so we've turned the camera around. You're no longer focused on me. That's not the important part. What is the important part is the ductwork and why I ran it. So certainly, I want to mention my Harvey Gyro Air G700 dust processor. Has been a great investment for me, and it was an expensive investment, but it was a wise investment for last year. So let's talk about what it gave me. So it comes with this adapter from 6 to 4-inch. Now, I decided to, in the past, what you see is with this top run here, that used to go to my table saw, which is 25 feet across my shop. Only my table saw, that's all it did. And then this run right here, I had for all my other tools. I ran a flex line. I did run a straight line out about 15 feet, and that handled all of my portable tools, everything that was on wheels. It worked fine, but as everyone knows, if you add too much flex hose, you're going to lose some suction in that part. So here's what I did. And I had talked about in the past earlier, I only had 2 blast gates in my entire shop. There's one, there's the other one. That's all I had in the past. I had no other blast gates whatsoever. I've added many more. Honestly, if I go count them, I think I've added 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I've added 4 blast gates to my shop right now. So I now, instead of having 2, I now have 6 blast gates. And we'll talk about why I added them to where I am in the meantime. So here's what I've done. This bottom line that comes out, honestly, it does come to a flex line, because all that's doing is that's coming over here about 4.5 feet to my joiner. That's all that line handles. All that line that handles just my joiner. So when I need to use my joiner, I pull this bottom blast gate out, I push the top blast gate in, and I'm done. So then what I did is I took this line, and using 45s, I went straight up. I made a 90 out of 2 45s. And then I came over and I made another 90 out of 2 more 45s. And then I'm coming straight across my shop. So I come just about 8 feet, maybe a little less. And I know it's a little dark just because of the lighting. That's the one thing we do need to adapt here in the shop, but we'll do that. So let's come down and take a look at what we did here. So hold right down. We're going to move to the other side of the shop here. This is my primary workbench. This is where I do all of my layout, all of my work. So you can see that there's a blue Craig or Dust Right hose hanging there. That's because I use that hose for my Mirka sander, my Festool Domino, my DeWalt router. Anything that I do on the desktop, I use that blue hose. So here's what I've done. Over the top of my bench, I put a Y and came out of that with multiple 45s. Yes, it's really ugly. And here is the first blast gate that I added. And I'm coming down, right down to the side of my workbench. And I'm tapped right there. That's where that line stops. And I do have a flex hose that hooks to that. Now, I do need to shorten that flex hose, but for right now, it works fine. That flex hose does a couple things. As you can see right now, it's attached to my Dust Right adapter and that 1.5 2-inch hose that goes to all of my hand tools. That really works good. It's efficient. It sucks in all of that dust. But then I can take this adapter off, and this adapter will now hook to all of my mobile tools that I have. So let's talk about those mobile tools. I have my drum sander. I have my bandsaw back here. I have my router table. I have my planer. And I have my oscillating sander here. All of these items I wheel out because I have a small shop. I wheel them out into the center of the shop when I'm ready to work. That one line hooks to that. And I can tell you, just by making that one change, on the Harvey dust processor, you can set it from 40 to 75 RPMs, whatever you want to call that. Doesn't matter. But you're increasing the suction power by increasing that volume. On my planer, I used to have to run that about 60. And it would get all the chips. I can actually drop that down now to about 52. With the run of solid line coming down, I can get all of the chips coming out of my planer without any issues right now. So that's one improvement that I've already made just by using solid pipe and coming down to here. That really worked well. So then let's go over here. So if I'm done with this, I can shut this blast gate. And then coming out of that Y that we talked about, I have another blast gate right here. Now notice I've taped all my joints with metal tape. I do need to go through and get a little bit more on some of them. But for the most part, they're tight. They're sealed right up. So I've used this blast gate right here. So that blast gate's open right now. So that blast gate is doing one thing. It's sending itself to a Y and 2 more blast gates. And you see there's one blast gate open right there. Let's talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about this blast gate that's closed right here. All right, so that blast gate is going all the way to the other side of my shop. And this was that long run that I had talked about earlier for my table saw. So now we've made that long run handle not only the table saw, but it's handling all of my mobile tools as well. So over here, again, we use 45s to make that 90. And then I have a Y right here. Let's talk about that Y in a second. I'm coming all the way down here to a short flex hose to go to the bottom of my cabinet table saw. Works great. So let's come up here. On that Y, I split off, and I split off to something new that I've added to my shop, and I'll reference the video to this tool at the bottom of this. Here's a small flex hose, and I could probably use straight hose for that, but I'm happy with the results here. I have added this new over-the-top dust collection for my table saw from a company called Penn Industries. So let's shoot around to the front. We'll take a closer look at this. So hold right down. We'll go do that. So here's a better look at that. And what this does is we've come off of that Y. We've come over here and we've attached to this overhead or over-the-top dust collection. So let me move my rip fence here a little bit so you can see it. And what this does is this comes all the way down, and I can tell you right now that we have improved our dust collection exponentially by adding this one tool over the top. There's a video that I posted yesterday or the other day for this. I will link that so you can go back and see the full explanation of this. That itself is about a 15-minute video, so we'll talk about that in that video, but I will link that in the description below. So we've come off of that, and we've done that. So now let's go back up to that pipe, and let me show you what we've added new. And this is the first time in 15 years I've had good dust collection to this tool. So out of that Y, with that blast gate that's open, we come down, and we're going to reduce. I get it. I understand. When you reduce and with dust collection, the airflow drops down and we lose some dust collection. I'm fine with that because what this does is this comes over here. And again, forgive the lighting. Someday we'll get really good lighting out here. Come down to a flex hose, and I need to change this, although I can't change it much because the tool that I'm using it on is my compound sliding miter saw. And this has improved the efficiency of my dust collection on this miter saw exponentially. So let's do something. Let's go ahead and make a cut on the cedar, see if you can see how it's working, and then we're going to take a really close listen to the amount of airflow coming through the back of this miter saw. So hold right on. We're going to attach you to my stand so I can go ahead and do this without holding on to the phone. So hold right on. I will be right back. So for those that have worked with cedar in the past, you know that cedar leaves a lot of dust. And as you can see, that dust system actually attempted to suck up the smaller piece that I originally cut. So this is the first time I've actually been able to cut something like cedar and not have a whole lot of sawdust left on the tool. And if you look really close, there is not any sawdust on that tool that to speak of. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and turn up the system again, and let me pick up the the recording device and put it underneath the saw so you can hear the massive volume coming through. So let's crank this up. So that's the volume that I have moving out of my compound miter saw for the first time in 15 years. So there we go. There is a quick tour of my wood shop and the dust system and how I set up the ductwork for my shop. Now again, I did this for me for a number of reasons. I needed a return on investment. I needed good cost justification to set this up. Health justification, I didn't have an issue with that. I could justify any dollar figure for that. But I also needed to figure out and justify the cost of a system and how much dust is it getting. Well, in my instance, this 4-inch PVC pipe is working fabulous for me. I have seen an exponential difference in dust extraction on all of my tools just since setting this up, and I've been really set up for about a month with some pretty major projects on it, cutting all sorts of hardwood, cedar, softwoods, plywood. I really see a huge difference in having to clean up at night and the dust in the air. It's just a huge difference. So very happy with it. So again, I had to justify from my point of view my return on investment. I'm happy with what I did. Now let's talk about why I put my blast gates where they are. Now I know a lot of folks put their blast gates right at the tool. I get it. I love that philosophy. My problem is, in order to put my blast gate for my table saw, if I put it right at the tool, I would be walking around my table saw every time I wanted to make a cut, and that was going to get old very, very fast. That blast gate right here for this downspout is really close to my tools, and that works really well. The blast gate over here for the joiner is really close to the joiner, and that works very well. Granted, my blast gate for my miter saw is a ways away from there, but it's as close as I could get it with the amount of piping that I was using over there. So I put them here in the center. That means I can just reach up and get them all without any issues. Now, someone shorter than me, my grandsons or whatever, they'll be climbing up on here to get it. But for me, I'm in my shop 99% of the time by myself. These blast gates work great. It's easy to adjust, and they're all right here because for the most part, when I'm working on something, yes, the joiner, I'm working on a separate blast gate, but I'm doing that at the beginning of a project. So once I close that blast gate, I'm pretty much done. I open up one other blast gate at the dust processor. All my blast gates are right here, and I'm working right here, and it works fabulous for me. So that's what I did. Any questions, feel free to drop them in. Any concerns, any suggestions, I'm open to those as well. But this is what I used. This is why I used them. I hope it helps someone else in their setup. And I'll link the Penn Industries overhead dust collection system for my table saw within the description of this, so you can click on that as well and go look at that video. But for now, I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. If you have not subscribed, please do that. Jump over to Instagram. We have our feed over there as well. We have a Facebook page, as well as BainCustomWoodworking.com. Our website has all our products that we're selling, as well as some other our blog posts and some other items. So again, thank you very much. And as always, keep making sawdust.